Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Schultz, and today we're going to be covering the Spanish 118 Language and Cultural Contact presentation number 1 that goes over the last 4 or 5 weeks of cultural contact hours that I've collected for this course. So how did I collect all of my contact hours? Well, I did this by watching a couple of series on television, specifically Los Spookies and then En Terapia, as well as the English counterpart to En Terapia, which is In Treatment. These are almost carbon copies of one another. I also listened to about an hour of the podcast Historias Peridadas. And then lastly, I read about an hour's worth of print media, specifically from news outlets out of Mexico City, such as El Norte, Reforma, and La Prensa. Some new vocabulary that I learned from this cultural immersion practice was contemplar, la cavidad, el orfanato, privado, privada, gratis, discutir, aprovechar, empezar, fingir, el gobinero, descansar, la película, el mundo, perder, recorrer, and corruptido. Some additional vocabulary that I also learned was entiendo, meaning simply I understand, ciao, as it relates to informal goodbyes, platicame, meaning tell me, kind of a gossiping, like tell me now phrase, and then ponerse las pilas, which is a little bit strange when because it translates directly to put the batteries on yourself, but in reality, it means it's a colloquialism, which means get it together or get cracking. So the last thing that I want to discuss in this video session is the cultural comparison and contrasting that I did. Specifically, a lot of this relates to the videos that I watched for the TV series. So the main thing that I noticed is the concept of personal space appears to be different between Spanish-speaking and English-speaking culture. And in English-speaking culture, personal space is highly coveted, and we try and keep people at an arm's distance. Okay? But in Spanish-speaking cultures, at least in the series that I watched, that barrier, the proximity with which people stood, even both formal and informal spacing or contexts, those spaces were a lot closer, sometimes almost standing on top of one another. And upon doing some further research, this is a cultural phenomenon in Spanish-speaking cultures. There's a sense of closeness and community. I'm not saying that there's not a sense of independence in these Spanish-speaking cultures, but the sense of community manifests itself based on the close proximity in which people apparently stand with one another. And this leads directly into the second salient point that I noticed, which was physical contact during conversations. It appears in Spanish-speaking cultures that physical contact, those physical expressions of the dialogue, are much more prominent than what they are in English-speaking cultures. There's whether it's a subtle gesture, a pat on the back, a tap on the arm, etc., a kiss on the cheek when you're greeting someone, what have you. This degree of physical contact in Spanish-speaking cultures between people that are conversing is much higher than what I have ever witnessed in my own English-speaking culture. And this kind of leads into point number 4. We'll come back to point 3 in a minute, but this kind of leads directly into point number 4 in terms of tonal inflection and facial expression. And how I see these two as being related is that when I was viewing some of the series that I watched, specifically looking at the In Terapia and then the carbon copy, or what was copied, which is In Treatment, the English dialogue was much more open-ended and left much more to the mind for interpretation. The Spanish-speaking dialogue was much more direct. And so my thinking and ultimate research revealed that tonal inflection and facial expression and physical contact ultimately make up for that directness. It allows for one to be a lot more, the inflection, the expressions, and the physical contact allows for someone to be a lot more expressive while still being very direct. So those are just points 2 and 4 are kind of unique when compared to English-speaking cultures, at least in my mind. Now, lastly, what I want to talk about is eye contact. Eye contact in Western English-speaking cultures is a sign of respect. When you're talking with someone, doctor speaking to a patient, you're maintaining eye contact to show that you're listening. However, my viewings and later research has revealed that in Spanish-speaking cultures, it's the opposite. That if you're dealing with someone out of respect or you feel embarrassed, the person that has a higher station or the person that you're hiding your shame from, you break eye contact with that person. You don't maintain that eye contact. It's not a sign of them being disrespectful, rather it's a sign of them showing that they are being respectful or they are embarrassed. That about wraps up my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or drop a comment below this video, and I'll be happy to answer it. Thank you for listening.